Coach, what was your evaluation of the night? I mean, you came in way high ranked, and Alabama basically just shut you down a little bit.
They did. We underachieved on Saturday offensively. Um, I think looking back on it and you evaluate everything, we would like to have had a better week of preparation. I think, and I think our guys understand that that translates to our performance on Saturday. I have no doubt that we were emotionally ready to play, and I think athletically we match up pretty good, and I think our players and our staff would tell you the same thing. But from an execution standpoint, we made far too many mistakes to beat a team like Alabama, and at the end of the day, that's really what it came down to.
Hey, Phil, did you sense during the week that preparation was lacking a little bit?
I think in retrospect, looking back, I think we could have done more to prepare. I think the X's and O's were fine, and we reevaluated our game plan, and we're happy with our plan, and we were happy with where the players were in terms of enthusiasm and emotion, and geared up and ready to play on Saturday. But our preparation going into the Alabama game, I think we all believe could have been better, and that falls on me, and so we'll get that taken care of, and I think we'll be more well prepared for the next game.
What was your sense on Alabama's pass rush and how they were able to be disruptive with that?
They got into some individual matchups, and they won some individual matchups, and it created some issues for us, put some pressure on Jordan. But you knew we were going to have some of those. When you play a team of this caliber, you're going to have to win some of those. And we also had some one-on-one matchups at receiver. We won a couple of them, and I think we're accustomed to winning more than we won on Saturday in those matchups, and we didn't get some of them, and so obviously that was an issue as well.
Jordan talked about on Saturday wanting to stay in because essentially that's what a leader does, and that's how you build leadership. What has been the reaction offense-wise to his mentality through that?
Oh, I don't think there's really not a reaction, just because that's the expectation for Jordan. Jordan's a warrior. He's a competitor. And, a game like this for Jordan Ta'amu is a good thing, just because, I think he said it after the game. He doesn't intend to let anybody see a game like that by him. That's him talking, and so, he's a humble guy, but he's a proud guy, and he works his tail off, and he prepares well. And I think he was disappointed in his overall performance, and there's nothing else he's focused on right now than playing the perfect game on Saturday. And so, you try to look at the positives from a negative experience, and I think it speaks volumes for Jordan, but I also think most of our offensive personnel feel the same way. They're going to look at what we didn't do well on Saturday, and those things will be better, this Saturday when we play Game 4.
When it comes to pass rush like that, does the lack of time, does it fall on the offensive line where they need to get him more time, or he needs to get the ball out faster, or?
Well, that's always the assumption. At the end of the season, when we look at our sacks, we evaluate all our sacks. There are quarterback sacks. Quarterback sacks are we had good protection, we held on to the ball too long, and we put too much pressure on the O-line. Of course, in the stands, it looks like the O-line. There's receiver sacks where you have MAs by receivers, or you have poorly run routes and they're not where they need to be when they need to be there, and that puts more pressure on the offensive line. You have running back sacks where the O-line does a great job and the RB doesn't protect the way he needs to. So there are all kinds of different sacks. I think everybody's quick to blame the offensive line, but we had some routes we could have triggered sooner Saturday. We had some protections we didn't handle the way we needed to up front. We had an issue once with a tight end. We had an issue with an RB. So sacks are very quickly handed down to the O-line, but that's not always the case.
Questions?
Coach, you always say you're going to run it when they're got a pass defense, and you're going to pass it when they got a run defense. Bama goes to the two shell, too high safety. We had a trouble with that. Matt said that a lot of it was the pass rush. You know, that's going to be kind of the defense that everybody looks at from here on out. How do you plan on tackling that in the future?
Well, I think we expected that. You know, I thought it was my assumption that Alabama would see or feel that their best matchup was going to be up front and in the box because they play the run so well, and that where we might gain the biggest advantage would be with the deep ball. And you know, we had a plan to throw underneath and to run the football. And I actually love the plan. If we played Alabama again, I don't think we would change the plan. But we've got to execute it better. You put the ball on the ground, and you throw picks, and you turn the ball over two series in a row, and you're going to put yourself behind the 8 ball against a really good football team, and we did that. You have penalties, and you give up some sacks that we probably shouldn't have. You know, too many of these things happened in the beginning of the game, you know, in the first half, and it just cost us. And I think to go back and have to play Alabama again, the plan is fine, but we would have to do a better job of executing, and I'd have to do a better job of preparing our football team for the game.
Any more questions for Coach?
Coach, did you feel that maybe after that first play where you scored on 75-yarder that maybe Jordan lost his patience a little bit or was taking too many shots downfield based on the looks he was getting and not going underneath as much as you would like him to?
I don't think so. The shots that we took were there. I mean, we missed a deep ball touchdown to Lodge on the second drive by inches. And, you know, not to beat a dead horse, but that's what Coach Bicknell and our staff and I have been talking about all week with our players. Inches make a difference against these good teams. And so doing things perfectly, executing so that a team with our talent on offense can compete with the other better teams in the country. We have to execute. We can't just match them athletically. We have to execute and match their execution the same way. And Saturday, our athleticism was here, but our execution was here. So I've got to make sure, and our staff has to make sure that we close that gap. And that's the emphasis and the focus for this week is to take advantage of the time we have to correct those things that we did not execute well on Saturday, close the gap from an execution standpoint, not an ability standpoint. And then that'll give us an opportunity when we do have a better athlete in a situation, we can take full advantage of it. No mistakes, and I think it's a very different football game, but that's easy to say on Monday.